If you've been watching a lot of videos on how AI is destroying the environment, then this video is the right one you need to watch. Because today I'm not just talking about the problems, but I'm also talking about the solutions, the real solutions that barely anyone is talking about in their videos, and things that you can actually do starting today to reduce your AI footprint. So here's what you're gonna get from this video. First of all, you're gonna get to know how exactly does AI impact the environment. Second, you'll get to know what are the real solutions that actually exist right now to solve this. And thirdly, you're gonna get to know what you can do at your individual level to reduce your AI footprint and save the environment. So make sure to stay till the end and watch the entire video, and let's just start the video now. A quick context before we get into this. You need to know the difference between generative AI and narrow AI. So narrow AI, we've had it for decades. It's an AI made specifically for one single task. It could be sorting your emails, recommending videos, or like doing one particular task at a time. That's it. But generative AI is an AI that can perform multiple tasks all at once, generating you text, code, images, videos, audios, a lot of things. So it is that AI that exploded back then after 2022 and 23 and all. You know, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, all of that counts in it. So the environmental impact that I'm talking about today is majorly caused due to this generative AI. You know, you type in that one single prompt into ChatGPT or Gemini, within a few seconds you get a response. That's really quick and fast. Where do you think that comes from? It's not that it's just coming in out of nowhere. It's coming from a cloud, a server, an AI data center that actually takes up space in the physical world. And that data center causes us environmental impact through three main pathways: power, water, and minerals. So let's go one by one and dive deep into how exactly they impact the environment, starting with the first pillar, which is power. See, as I said, every AI has its own data center which contains AI chips that makes the AI chat actually happen. It's running 24/7 uninterrupted, so hence it needs to consume a lot of power in order to be fast. So it's estimated that currently global data center energy use is projected at 620 to 1050 terawatt hours in 2026, with AI specific workloads consuming 150 to 200 terawatt hours and non-AI workloads taking remaining 470 to 850 terawatt hours. Just to tell you how huge that is, this much amount of electricity is equivalent to powering the entire country of Japan for a whole year. That's huge. And this energy, it majorly comes from the non-renewable resources, which are fossil fuels: coal, natural gas, petroleum. And that is covering about like 54% of it, and that's bad because only around 44 or 40% of the power comes from renewable energy. So we are depleting our finite fossil fuels because of these AI data centers, and that's how it's causing a huge impact. And did you know that globally, AI data centers account for about 3 to 4% of complete electricity that we have right now? And the thing is, as I mentioned earlier, it uses up a lot of fossil fuels, right? And you know how we burn these fossil fuels and carbon dioxide is released? Yes. So these data centers, they release huge amounts of carbon emissions and they leave a big carbon footprint, which is really bad for the environment. On top of that, these power plants that supply the data centers, they emit nitrogen oxides and other pollutants. And there was this one study that happened at UC Riverside and Caltech. Researchers over there found out this report that by 2030, it's an estimation that air pollution from these data centers alone could contribute to about 6 lakh asthma related cases and around 1,300 premature deaths per year. That public health cost, it's enormous, like over $20 billion annually. And it's just for United States, and it's just an estimated study, so the numbers might vary. But it's still real. It's a real problem happening because of enormous power usage through the fossil fuels. Now let's talk about the solutions. Did you know that solar energy is much more cheaper than oil or natural gas in many regions? And India literally receives about 300 days of sunshine a year and has a 500 gigawatt renewable energy target by 2030. So we're already sitting on the solution here. And not just that, we have wind turbines, wind energy, and these nuclear power plants are being installed. So why isn't India adopting these renewable grids for our data centers? You know, at the India AI Impact Summit that happened 2 months back, there's this startup called Trifacta Connex that signed a $7.7 billion deal with Uttar Pradesh to build a 1 gigawatt data center that integrated clean energy, solar, battery usage, and future nuclear capacity, building the power source and the data center together so that they don't strain the public grid. Like, how cool is that? I'm pretty sure not many people are aware about this, right? And there's this another startup called Endeavour Energy, which just launched a system called PACT. It uses methane pyrolysis to split natural gas into hydrogen and solid graphite. So the hydrogen powers the AI data centers, and this graphite gets sold for industrial use such as batteries, semiconductors, and even concrete. It's genuinely a much clever use, right? Than just directly using the natural gas for power. And then there's this another thing called photonic computing, where chips are using light instead of electricity to power them. And that reduces the power consumption by a lot. Researchers at the University of Sydney just published results in Nature Communications showing a photonic AI chip that computes at the speed of light, produces dramatically less heat than any other AI data center using normal electricity. And the thing is, if this scales, future AI data centers could need far less cooling than it requires right now. And not just that, listen to this, it's gonna blow your mind. In Singapore, there's a startup called Cortical Labs that is building biological data center where it uses live human neurons. Yes, real brain cells growing from the stem cells, and they call it wetware. So each module draws of as little as 30 watts of power from these neurons compared to around 6,000 watts for a single high-end GPU from those NVIDIA GPUs and all. So it's still at the experimental phase, but I found it interesting, so I just thought, why not put it into this? So imagine if it scales, imagine if it actually works. That's gonna save a lot of power consumption. And you know, AI is even helping accelerate the fusion research. So here, Google DeepMind and others are using AI to control plasma inside fusion reactors in real time. So it's like one of the hardest challenges in physics, but it's being solved with AI right now. And the thing is, we're not there yet. We've not solved it. But if fusion succeeds, then it could literally provide virtually limitless clean energy. And AI is making that research happen much faster than ever before. Now let's come to the second pillar, which is water. I'm sure a lot of us are aware about this, that one chat of ChatGPT or Gemini consisting over 20 to 50 prompts would take up about 500 milliliters of water, which is half a liter, right? And like just one prompt into ChatGPT is like half a teaspoon of water. I'm sure we've all heard about these numbers, right? Not just that, India's numbers are crazy. You know, there was this report that came up. We currently have 270 data centers, and together their water consumption from 2025, which was last year, literally doubles up entirely from 150 billion liters consumed into 358 billion liters of water consumed by 2030. That huge jump is how much fresh water these data centers are consuming and literally wasting. Now you might be thinking, even if this water is used, can't it come back through the water cycle? Well, that is quite correct because you can get the water back. But the problem here is that the wind usually takes away the moisture from the atmosphere to far off places. So when the rainfall actually occurs, it does not occur in the place from where the water was taken, but instead it occurs in oceans or other distant places, replenishing others and not the dry region itself. Now, see, as I said, these data centers run 24/7 uninterrupted and use enormous amount of power, right? For like billions of users worldwide, literally all the time. So it's obvious that these data centers get hot. So to prevent these data centers from melting, cooling strategies are adopted to cool them down, right? Now here, a majority of the data centers use evaporative cooling, where a lot of water is given to these data centers, and these water molecules, they absorb the heat away from the data centers and put the massive heat out into the atmosphere. This water, it just turns into steam and is thrown outside into the environment, and it's wasted heat. So it sounds quite simple, but it happens daily in a lot of data centers, not just in India but globally. That means it's using up a lot of fresh water, which is quite concerning. And according to this S&P Global report, around 60 to 80% of India's data centers could face high water stress within this decade. And that's because a lot of these data centers are being made in the water stressed regions, where water itself, fresh water itself, is like a scarcity over there. So that's creating an even worse situation, which is why people are protesting against these AI data centers. Now let's see how people are solving this water crisis, because this is a real concern among all of us about water usage. So there's this technology called closed loop liquid cooling. In Nordic countries such as Finland, Sweden, Ireland, data centers are using this very technology to reduce water scarcity and water consumption by data centers. Here, instead of evaporative cooling, where water is used to evaporate and throw away the heat, pipes are attached near the data centers directly to the chips, where the liquid coolant passes and cools the chips right next to it. The liquid is literally circulating in this closed system, causing zero water usage and zero water consumption. And the fact that only a few data centers have this technology makes it even more surprising. Shouldn't all the data centers adopt this for reducing water scarcity? And then not just that, companies like Corintis are building micro channels thinner than a human hair that cools 3 times more effectively than evaporative cooling. So that is like a technology super cool, better than evaporative cooling. And then there's this company called Oracle, which has mandated closed loop liquid cooling in all the AI data centers. My question is, why isn't India doing something like this? Like, I'm pretty sure, yes, some of the data centers in India might have this system, but not a majority of them do it. You know, for hot and humid places, like even in India, there's a promising new approach. Now this is gonna blow your mind, okay? Keep listening. So there's this thing called membrane cooling, where it uses semi-permeable membranes that let the heat escape while recycling most of the water back into the system. If you're not understanding, you'll understand it by what I'm showing on the screen. But yeah, this is crazy. But yeah, it's just at a pilot stage right now. And if this happens, this is gonna reduce the heat and the water consumption by a lot. And then there's this Microsoft's project called Natick that actually sank real data centers into the deep sea, like down into the ocean floor. It was like 8 times more reliable than land-based data centers, and the temperatures just stayed constant. Although it might be more expensive, but it is working and is providing benefits. So that's so cool. Now let's come to waste heat solutions. So hear me out. In Finland, Microsoft data centers, what they do is they supply over 40% of the heating for the entire city of Espoo through the heat that's produced through the data centers. Remember that thing I said, like AI data centers, they produce heat, like they just put it into the environment. Here in Finland, they're using it to heat the cities and warm the homes. How cool is that? And in Denmark, Meta servers again heats thousands of homes, and in Sweden, a data center heats the greenhouse growing fresh food. And not just that, in France, this data center operator called Data4, they're using the waste heat that's released and the carbon dioxide emissions together to grow microalgae on top of the data centers to literally capture the emissions that is produced. Like, literally, the algae can absorb up to 20 times more carbon dioxide per square meter than the trees can. Although it's still a pilot project, imagine if it scales. People are thinking in crazy ways, which is blowing my mind and probably is blowing yours too. Now think about India. We have around 270 data centers, okay? Around 30 to 40% of our food grains goes into waste because of inadequate processing and cold chain infrastructure. Now just imagine if that heat produced from these massive data centers could be used for dehydration of these food items. What if that massive heat is used to supply here for processing the food grains? How beneficial would that be? And not just that, it could be used for several other facilities. So here we're not just having a heat problem that's just being thrown into the environment, we're literally having an unexploited thermal resource. No one is questioning this loudly. And I need people to think like that. Let's come to the third pillar, minerals and e-waste. So, as you all know that these data centers contains AI chips, GPUs, all those sort of advanced technologies that make all of this happen. So these chips, they require rare earth minerals to make them, okay, such as gallium, germanium, neodymium, copper and other such minerals. And to get those minerals, we have to perform mining. And this mining causes deforestation, habitat destruction, chemical pollution, soil damage and all of that. Now that's a different part, okay? That's like normal problems caused by mining, but mining due to AI, okay? Here's the thing. Now, once that single AI chip is made, it gets used for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, but after that period, it's just thrown into landfills. That's the part no one is talking about. These AI chips, they get obsolete within just 3 to 4 years. So it just goes into waste and accumulates into forming e-waste. Let me explain why. So newer models keep arising every other month or every other year, like highly advanced models as compared to the older ones. So these AI models, they require newer AI chips. The old chips are just thrown away, which contain hazardous minerals, hazardous chemicals. That's just gonna lead into soil degradation and land degradation, causing a lot of damage. And literally, we're wasting all these minerals, right? So that is again how AI impacts the environment by accumulating into electronic waste at huge amounts. There's something that a lot of people don't know. Researchers have found a few materials marketed as biodegradable inside these AI chips. But when they break down, it breaks down into microplastics that literally can persist in soil for years. So that's a huge concern. And there's also this one efficiency trap that I read about called the Jevons paradox. It's like the more efficient that we try to become by using greener infrastructure, the greener technology, we are still gonna end up using a lot of energy, a lot of water and a lot of minerals, causing a lot of harm at the same time. Because we're inviting more and more AI users because it's making the technology cheaper and more accessible. Just like how there are cars going on and you're just widening the road thinking that you're reducing the traffic, but in fact you're just inviting more cars to come to bring in more traffic. Although yes, there might be a lot of positive effect, but the net positive effect will still be lesser and not a bigger change, which is what's happening currently in AI right now. And this problem is really bad because it's just a paradox. We can't just come out of this until we solve this, right? We can't get rid of it. So now let's look at the solutions that solve these problems. Starting off with the first one, urban mining. So here, instead of tearing apart new land and mining for those rare earth minerals, companies are now extracting copper, germanium, gold, silver, and other rare earth metals directly from the old discarded servers. Modern recovery processes can extract over 95% of rare earth elements from old circuit boards. And recycling rare earth magnets, they cut emissions by 95% compared to fresh mining. Companies like Korea Zinc are already building industrial scale urban mining hubs to feed retired servers directly back into the new hardware. Second, AI is literally solving its own resource problem. A company called Nitron Magnetics is using AI to engineer magnets that completely eliminate the need of rare earth elements and instead just uses iron and boron. Like, AI is literally discovering its own replacement materials. Wow. And third, modular server design. Instead of trashing entire server racks, upgrade the chip and keep the rack. And literally, governments are also stepping in. The EU now mandates 25% of the mineral demand must come from recycling. So by now I'm pretty sure you're quite shocked at a lot of things that are happening. Now here are the things that you can actually do to reduce your AI footprint and not impact the environment. Okay, starting with the first one, using the right AI models for the right work. So let me explain. Sometimes we use the bigger models such as Gemini 3 Pro or Claude Opus or ChatGPT 4.0 for smaller queries like summarize this paragraph, write an essay on this. Like, what I'm trying to say is that you don't need a larger model to do a smaller query. For that, basic small models are more than enough. So for that, you need to learn and have a bit knowledge about LLMs, SLMs, and basically all AI models that are out there for different purposes. Using the right AI for the right work. That is how you're going to save the environment, by using it efficiently instead of mindlessly, right? And then secondly, you have to learn green prompting. What I mean by green prompting is that I'm pretty sure you've noticed this. You've probably had those type of chats where you've sent 30 to 40 prompts to an AI. Even I've done that to just get one single output. Now, isn't that energy wastage? You could have done the same thing in just 2 to 3 queries. And that is what's called green prompting. You have to mention your context, your constraints, your exact information to the AI so that it knows exactly what to do without being confused. If you want, you can search up on how to learn green prompting. You can do that, or I can make a video on it, whatever it is. But learning green prompting makes you an efficient prompt writer, bringing in much better responses than ever in reduced amounts of tokens of prompts. And third, using open source models. Now, it's similar to the first one, but more like having a knowledge about what open source models are and using these small models locally in your computer. Did you know that you can literally host AI models on your computer without touching a single data center? Using smaller models and open source models is gonna reduce your AI footprint to a lot. If you want, I can make videos on open source models. If you want, you can comment it down below and I'll make it, or search it up and you'll find. Fourthly, stop consuming AI garbage. Like, please, I am so sure that you all know what I'm talking about. Those AI memes and cats talking to each other, vegetables talking and dancing with each other. Like, it's fun at that moment. You're watching the reel, you kind of laugh at that moment, you share it with your friends. But what are you doing? You're promoting energy consumption and wastage. Do you know that a 5-second AI generated video uses about 1000 watt hours of electricity? equivalent to a microwave running for an hour or a TV running for an hour. That is how much energy they are consuming to make that. And imagine if you're watching that, which means you're giving more and more millions of views to that creator will be more enthusiastic to make more such videos and waste power and water and minerals. Now that's bad. So stop consuming it and stop sharing it. And if you're a creator of those kind of videos, please stop making it, please. And by the way, good news, you know that one platform called Sora, it's made by OpenAI, ChatGPT, it literally shut down. Like yesterday, it shut down. Like I got this thing, I'll show you on screen. I'm amazed. I'm like, wow, finally. Although I don't know what the reasons could be, but it's crazy. It's good. So, because Sora is like that, it's a video generator tool that did not arrive in India yet, but it's made for that one purpose, making AI slop. But I'm happy that it's gone now. Either ways. Now, fifth thing that you can do is by demanding AI transparency. You know how a lot of people are protesting on ban AI, stop using AI, start using your brains and blah 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 stuff. I would say stop protesting on that and start protesting on AI data centers and these AI companies to start being more transparent about how much electricity do they use and where does this power come from, how much water do they use, and what type of system do they use for cooling systems, and how much minerals do they use. Basically being transparent about what their environmental impact is. You know, all these measurements that I told you, these are all researched and estimated results. It's not the actual numbers. The actual numbers could be way higher or way lower. We don't know. But we wouldn't know until and unless these companies start being more transparent. And you know, obviously, history has taught us several times how a lot of citizens come together, demand, protest, then things actually change. So, by these protests, by demanding transparency, things change. And finally, the last solution that I would want to talk about, and I'm so happy if you're watching this video till here, I am so grateful for that. Like, this is a very long video, and if you're spending your time here, I'm really happy. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, share this video with your friends, and wait, let me finish the video and tell all of this. So make more videos on it. If you are a content creator, or if you're just a creator in your own group, make videos on this, spread awareness. Yes, I've seen videos about how AI consumes millions of gallons of water, but I've not seen a single video about how closed loop liquid cooling saves water, about how membrane technology is being built, and about how the waste heat is being reused in Finland. No one's making videos on this, and that is the exact purpose I made this exact video today. And I'm so glad that you've watched it till the end. And you know, our generation is already stepping up. It's our generation who's demanding these protests on banning AI. I'm really happy about that people are finally researching on it, but the focus needs to be changed, and that was the main purpose of this video. That's everything. AI is impacting the environment brutally, that's true, but there are solutions that exist right now and solutions that are being built. And if you are a part of using AI efficiently and environment friendly way, then you drastically do reduce the environmental impact. So make sure to share this video with as many people as you can, because it's a need. And tell me in the comments down below, what are the things that you genuinely were shocked today, and things that you'll start doing from today, or what are the other alternative solutions that are in your mind? Comment it down below that I might have missed. Do tell me, do share it in the comments, and I'll see you all in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.